be. I'd like to firstly introduce Mrs. Laura Isibo, the engagement lead for Sub-Saharan Africa, who's deeply passionate about engaging with African students and professionals and communities across the UK. Thanks to her support, this has been made possible. She has tremendous experience with the Home Office. We're delighted to have her as the engagement lead for Sub-Saharan Africa. She will introduce our other colleague. I know we have Janet, Jakpa, Suhal, and Rebecca. But before Mrs. Isibo goes on to talk about her role and her team, I think it's best she also helps us just to let us know who else is with her. Thank you very much, madam, for joining us this afternoon. I guess, is she connecting? We cannot hear you, Mrs. Isibo. It appears we've lost connection with Laura.
I can jump in if that's okay.
It was okay. You carry on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So my name is Suhal Ahmed. I'm one of Laura's colleagues. I cover Asia Southeast when it comes to community engagement. So apologies, Laura's just trying to reconnect. So when she reconnects, she'll come back in. But the team, essentially, we're a team that covers nationally for the Home Office. We work within IE, which is immigration enforcement. But in working in immigration enforcement, we also look at engaging with communities regarding those vulnerable in society. So we could be helping communities when it comes to the agendas of homelessness, modern slavery, and you'll hear from one of our colleagues at the Home Office when it comes to modern slavery and what the Home Office does in that space. But really today's going to be hopefully a great session. We've got a really packed agenda. Laura should be joining us shortly. Thereafter, we have colleagues from the Home Office, Janet and Jag. Janet will be covering modern slavery, safeguarding, and my colleague Jag will be covering criminality within immigration and how that's being addressed. And then myself, I'll do a quick dip sample into careers, civil service, and jobs at the civil service. I've been in the civil service 10 years myself through various policy professions, and we'll give you a quick flavour. We know that in the future, there'll be a separate session on civil service jobs and social mobility. The regard that just because you're in London, all the resources are there. No, we don't believe that. We believe jobs are all across the UK and will help highlight those aspects. And then we'll also aim to look at student policy and changes in student policy here in the UK. And then we'll take a quick Q&A. How does that sound in terms of the agenda? Awesome
agenda. Thank you very much, Suhal.
I'm back in now.
Oh, fantastic.
So sorry about that. It's IT issues, as we all know. So thanks, Suhal. That's my colleague, Suhal. We work together. It's also the engagement lead. I think he's already hopefully is introduced himself for the Asia Southeast. So yes, so I'm just going to give a brief overview on the work that we do as the NSET team, and then I'll pass on to my colleagues as well. So as Suhal has said, we have a few people on today that will be giving you some overview of a few of the areas of the remit that we cover at the Home Office. So my name is Laura Isibo, Mrs. Laura Isibo, and I am the lead for the Sub-Saharan African countries, and that includes Nigeria, which used to be the main one before it changed in September last year, since the team started in 2016. But now we've got Ghana, DRC, Cameroon, the Gambia, Senegal, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Eritrea, Sudanese, and Cote d'Ivoire, and a few more added on. Hence, we've also have new staff that have joined now that was going to help with all those areas, because as you know, one person, it would be really challenging for one person to cover all of those areas. But as colleague, I believe, as well as mentioned, I have today with me Janet, Suhal, Jag, and Rebecca, and they'll be giving an overview on various topics, which we believe that are quite relevant. So just to give you a brief overview of the team, the National Community Engagement Team previously had a 5-country approach, which as I said before, one of these was Nigeria. And then we also had Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, and Albania. So those were the 5 that we actually worked on and worked with for the last 5 years. And that has been ongoing. But however, since September 2002, there was a change in direction. Which allowed us to move away from this to a more broader scope of engagement. So now we have a wider geographical regional remit covering Sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, which my colleague Suha that just spoke now covers. And then we also now got European, and we also now got the Caribbean as well. So we want to try and reach as many areas as we can. And because of that, we've actually brought in 4 engagement officers who will now be working with us closely as officers, and we'll work together with them in these new areas. Hence, it's important that this kind of seminar we're having today, it involves not just Nigerians, other African communities that we can reach out to, because everyone needs to have an understanding of any changes and any immigration policies that they might be involved in, or their family members or their friends might be involved, might be part of, and they want to know more to help them to regularize their status. So the National Engagement Team, we not only do just local engagement, we also look at strategic engagement as well. And so it's very important for us to inform, to engage, and to involve, which is what we're doing today. Today, we're informing you giving you an overview, giving you awareness of information that you might even have an idea of already, but it's just to let you know, coming from us that work there, to have more understanding and to be able to ask us questions that either we can respond to today, or we can go away with and come back to David and say, look, these are the responses to those questions that was asked online. So it's very important for us to be compassionate and respectful, just as we expect you to be compassionate and respectful towards us as well. And also, we want to have a person-centered approach. So, there's no point us going and doing all this work and we don't have that compassion to listen, because it's very important. Everyone wants to be listened to, even if sometimes you actually don't give them the answer they want, but at least you've listened. And then we can take it back and say, you know what, these are what we've heard from the community. The Wendy Williams recommendation, when everyone's obviously know about the Windrush. So she did say that one of the steps we need to make as the Home Office is to help communities and groups to understand the policies and to involve them in our engagement. That is what we're doing. That's one of the things we're doing today. Obviously, it's going to take time to reach everybody, because some people are not trustful of the Home Office, which we understand. But at the end of the day, we want to build trust, and it starts bit by bit. And that's what we're trying to do today, to try and build the trust and gain that respect that we should be gaining anyway. But because of policy, sometimes things do happen. But we want to be there to be able to be visible to the community. In regards to our communities, we deal with different stakeholders. So we deal with stakeholders ranging from, from like we're doing today, universities. We deal with charities. We deal with educational establishment like yourselves. We deal with high commissions. We deal with local authorities. We deal with leaders of mosque and leaders of churches, and just actually community leaders and community itself, people we deal with, so that we can share guidance. And some of the areas that we share guidance on is modern day slavery, like you hear a bit about from Janet today. We talk about families, queries, students, changes in immigration, and in any kind of any new policy that's coming. We've got healthcare workers policy, we talk about that, and social mobility, which Suha will also talk about today in regards to career opportunities. Because there's some students that are just about to, they got their ILR, or they're just about to get their ILR, and they now have regularized status here and they want to work in the civil service. So that's the opportunity for them to work there. Or some have just begun, about to get their British passport. There's an opportunity for them to work there. So we want to make sure that we give all of this information out there, so that at least you know that, okay, I know about this. It's not up to you if you want to exercise or not. or you don't want to, but at least you understand that this is what we need to be doing, or you want to do. One of our objectives is to understand the impact also that we have on communities, because we know, as I said, we want to build trust. We want to address misconceptions. And also we want you to understand the policy and the delivery of the policies as well. So we deal with different diverse community, and it can be challenging, I have to be honest with you, reaching out to different communities, because some communities are very receptive and some are not receptive, but how do we, break that barrier? How do we build that bridge so that we can actually come together as the Home Office representatives and also the community out there and take it back to our senior leaders, say, this is what the community is saying, and what can we do about it? Sometimes we can't get the answer straight away, but at least we have an understanding of, of how we can work together in a more efficient way as well, and more trustful way too. And also we are going to be working, and we're already working with the compliance team, and they are the ICE teams. And what they do is that we're trying to make sure we continue with is the surgeries. So they set up surgeries for meaningful one-to-one. Okay, so some areas of the business set up surgeries whereby people come in on one-to-one basis, and that's for the immigration officers, enforcement officers, and we get involved as well. And that's something that we agree with the leaders of the community that we talk to. And then we want to continue to improve communications as well with yourselves and the leaders of the various communities that we deal with. So those are some of our objectives that we continue to look into. So the topics that we would look at also, as I said before, are varied. And most importantly, we want you to be aware of the risk of irregular migration to the UK, the consequences of remaining in the UK without your lawful status. And also we want you to be aware that we are as well aware of the vulnerabilities, because people go through different situations, modern day slavery, domestic violence, exploitation is really quite, strife right now. And we want to emphasize the risk of that, and without regularizing your status. So that's why we have some colleagues here today that will be speaking briefly on our vulnerabilities and how it can impact your immigration status, and what we can do to help in those areas. And what I find as the African lead is a lot of the African community do not want to say anything, especially when it comes to exploitation and vulnerability issues. They have been told before, and they believe that, okay, when they are when they have issues like that, once immigrations are aware, they will be sent back home the next day. That it doesn't work like that. It cannot work like that, because we're people as well, and our officers are aware now, even more now, that you need to look at the vulnerability first. What's happening with that person? What are they suffering from? What is the issue? What is stopping them from regularizing their status? There's something that we need to be aware of. But I'm hoping that these sessions that we're having will help people to understand that they can come forward to someone like myself if they're going through exploitation, because that is so important. And there's so many different options you can take. If you don't, if there are options that you don't want to take, there are other options you can look into. So for us, it's very important that we engage with you at the level where you get more awareness. So most of the time, our approach is soft approach. And you not only attend events, we'll also deliver seminars like this as well. So I just wanted to stop there just to say that, we're here to listen. We're here to try and build trust with your community. We're here to make a difference. We're here to raise awareness. We're here to take back whatever you or your leads says that, it's an issue that we think that, okay, what can we do about it? It might not be straight away, but at least we can listen and take it back. And then most importantly, we want to be able to signpost you accordingly to wherever it is that you think you need to, what you need to know about. So we will signpost you accordingly, so you're not making mistakes. And I want to leave with this fact that there's so many people that have very straightforward immigration situation, and they still go to the lawyers, they still go to solicitors. I'm not saying the solicitors don't do their job. Yes, they're paid to do a job, and they will do a good job, some of them. But there are many, many stories we've heard that people that have a direct, very just normal applications will still go to solicitors when they can actually be able to make the application yourselves. And how can you make that yourself? Because you need to get the relevant information to do that. So we want people to also, because of the cost of living is so high now as well. So we have to be, all have to be careful of what we do and how we do things and who you speak to, who you listen to. So please go to the right source. If you're not sure about anything on this platform today, about immigration situation, can I just ask David to contact me. If I'm not very conversant with that kind of information, I can find out from other areas of the business that I deal with. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm just going to invite my colleague Janet. She will kind of give us an overview on the vulnerabilities and the safeguarding around immigration.
Thank you
And we can
very
take
much.
questions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. Just before Janet comes in, just very quickly as well, I mean, one of the things we forgot to mention at the onset is the Home Office it wouldn't deal with specific cases today. So if you're having a particular case you want them to talk into, we're going to organize another session where one-to-one issues can be dealt with. But today is not for that. There'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. But if you have a particular case you want the Home Office to give you a perspective on, today would not be that day. Like, can I look up my case number, give me advice on my application? That would not be today, but we'll take general questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Janet.
Janet, we can't hear you.
Is Janet there, or she been logged off?
She is there, but for some reason, she's talking, but I can, she's gone off now, but you couldn't hear her when she was talking.
All right, sorry about this. We have a bit of IT issues sometimes.
And I think Jag also can't join in for some reason. It's not allowing him to come on.
Yeah.
So.
Janet, are you there? She's probably gonna.
She's there, but she's not able to. For some reason, her microphone is not working.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should move on to the next agenda, and then when they join, they can cover where they left off. Does that work?
No, but Rebecca, they don't actually know who you are. So could you please just introduce yourself to the group, and then I'll get Suha to come in.
Okay. So my name is Rebecca Nathan Emisa. I've worked for the Home Office for the past 21 years, and I think next year, February, will be my 22nd anniversary working with the Home Office. I'm one of the project managers working on the e-visa project, and I'll be speaking to, just giving you an overview of what the e-visa will be, because most of you will be aware we are phasing away BRPs, which is your biometric cards, and also your vignettes. So I'll give a brief overview on that, and I'll speak to you about students as well. I think Janet is back now. Can you hear us, Janet?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Excellent.
me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Do you want me to carry on,
Yes,
or Rebecca,
Yes.
do you want to?
No. You can go, Janet, please.
I'm very sorry about that. I could hear everything. I just couldn't, so I've had to go off and come back on my phone. So thank you very much for the invitation. My name's Janet Griffiths, and I'm a Safeguarding and Modern Slavery lead. So my role is to support my colleagues when they encounter and safeguard and protect vulnerable adults and children. So we have, as Laura said, the person-centered approach, which means that we try and safeguard anybody before we even look at their immigration status. So anybody can be vulnerable, any nationality, any gender, any age, and those vulnerabilities can increase or decrease depending on their circumstances, their job, where they are in their life, whether there's no right or wrong. People's vulnerabilities change. So we treat every interaction that we have with everybody as an opportunity to safeguard somebody. So that could be a foreign national, it could be an EU national, it could be somebody with ILR here, so residence here, but it can also be a British national, because obviously part of our work we do.
I know. Just give me, Mona, just give me one.
Sorry. So all the work that we do is to safeguard anybody at any interaction that we come across, and anybody can be vulnerable. So what we'll do is we'll work with the people that we encounter to make sure that they're safe, that we will make full use of our partnership working. So we can't safeguard on our own. So it may be that we'll need some police assistance, we may need to go to the local authority. It also may mean that we have to ask social services or whoever it is, or
Janet, you've been muted. If you can unmute yourself, please.
Sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Sorry, somebody actually muted me. I didn't touch it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So I mean, I was trying to mute the other person. Apologies for that.
Okay, fair enough. So as well as our safeguarding, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is modern slavery. Anybody can be a victim of modern slavery at any point of their life. And the thing about modern slavery is people often don't realise that they are being exploited, because they don't know what's right and wrong. They don't know it. So modern slavery can be you're paid less than the minimum wage, and that's a form of labour exploitation. So one of the hurdles we find is actually people don't recognise that they're victims. So one of our jobs is to, when we interact with somebody, is to look at what's around us, look at any evidence, look at any indicators of modern slavery, and then take the appropriate action. So I'm sure you will be surprised, but the highest number of potential victims that are identified in each year in the UK are actually British nationals. So that shows that anybody can be a victim. And our job, as we're called first responders, is to identify the indicators of modern slavery and then make a referral into what's called the National Referral Mechanism, which is a support mechanism for potential victims of modern slavery. And that can be any kind of exploitation, labour, criminal, sexual. It could include overseas domestic workers who are not being paid, who've got really bad conditions, who've got no contract. So we teach our staff to be aware of the indicators. But one thing I will say to you as members of the community is we can't help you unless you come forward and ask for help. And it doesn't mean just because you ask for help that you, like Laura says, that you will be arrested and removed, because that's not the case. We will make sure that you're safe, that you're secure, because your immigration status, if it's illegally here or it's uncertain, will still be there when we've safeguarded you. And that's our important thing. We will safeguard you first. We will make sure that you're not going to be exploited, and then we will work out what we can do next. So thank you very much. I'll hand back to Laura.
Hi, Janet. Thank you. Yeah, we're meant to have Jag on, but it's having issues logging on, but it's on. It will probably be on soon. So I'm just going to use the opportunity to ask Suhal. Is going to be talking about social mobility and the career development, career opportunities in civil service home office.
Thanks for that, Laura. And hi, everyone. Again, my name is Suhal Ahmed. I'm one of the National Community Engagement Leads covering Asia Southeast. So the communities that I support include Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Bangladesh, Macau, Mongolia, and Japan. Today's talk is going to be quite brief, because I understand in the coming months we'll do a more deep dive into social mobility, looking at policy professions here in the civil service, specific routes into employment. So we would hope that you can join us for that. Today is really about a conversation about life in the civil service. Now, myself, I've been in the civil service 10 years. I've gone through various policy professions, whether it's operational delivery, out and about, seeing members of the public, or deriving policy back at the desk. And that could be across various subject matters. For example, it could be serious organized crime, it could be knife crime policy, other. So it's been a very interesting 10-year journey. Now, we here on the call from the Home Office, we are all civil servants, okay? Now, civil servants deliver work for the government of the day to help implement the policies that government comes up with. And ultimately, we have to be honest, impartial, and we also have to have various other codes of conduct, such as integrity. These bits of information in terms of UK government civil service, you can find online. If you type in .gov.uk civil service, you can find all of that information there. And essentially, we aim in this specific job in particular, we aim to engage with our communities in order for us to derive policies and support mechanisms, whether it's support for vulnerable people or support in terms of finding more about immigration enforcement and policies to help them become more informed. And one of the other things I wanted to talk to us about the call here is I'm one of the co-chairs of a network in the Home Office. Now, various government departments have networks. So we here at the Home Office, we have faith and belief networks and diversity inclusion networks. I'm one of the co-chairs to the Home Office Islamic Network. We also have other networks such as the Christian Network, the Hindu Network, and various other networks that enable yourselves, should you apply to the Home Office, to fully bring yourself. So should you be practicing your faith, you can also expect that from your employer. And we here in Networks ensure that we encourage that and we promote that. And that's part of our wider Home Office diversity inclusion strategy, which you can find online. And that's the Home Office's commitment to ensuring diversity inclusion remains at the heart of what we do for not just our staff, but also for yourselves, our public. So I appreciate there are many colleagues here on the call from various aspects of the business in the Home Office, but also respect the fact that there are many attendees that have dialed in from an international platform. So please have a look online and see if you can apply yourself to the civil service. There are various job opportunities available, whatever your background may be. Should that be, for example, the medical background, the accountancy background, legal background, and other. So I'd really encourage us to have a look at the different types of policy professions out there. You can also find online the nationality requirements and the Q&A online. So if you look on www.gov.uk/nationality rules for civil servants, hopefully a lot of the questions regarding applications can be answered there. So please have a look. In terms of routes into the civil service, there are various routes into the civil service. There's the conventional, of course, anybody can have a look on civilservicejobs.gov.uk and you've got your various levels of entry there. But also you have what I call is trials into your job. So trials into your job could be an apprenticeship. For example, it could be an early diversity internship program. It could be a movement to work scheme. And all of these entries into employment to the civil service can be found on the website again. So please have a look on the website. You'll be inundated with regular programs that you can take part in. And the most popular one, I would say, amongst graduates in particular, is the fast track process. So you've got the fast track process available for graduates to have a look on, and a lot of information about that is available online. I won't go into the detail too much, but I'm happy to take any sort of Q&A at the end in terms of careers and civil service. But I'm conscious that we have various other colleagues on the call that want to jump on to discuss the area. So Laura, I'll hand it back to you.
Hi. So thank you very much. I appreciate that quick overview. And as you said already, next we will arrange with David and have a good 1-hour session, to come in and give them more about how, how to apply the links they need to go through and all of that, hopefully in the new year. So thank you for that. I appreciate your time. And I believe Jag is now able to log in. So I'll ask Jag to introduce himself, please. And he's going to be giving us just a kind of a brief session on criminality and immigration. Over to you, Jag. Hello, Jag, you there?
Jack, you need to unmute.
You need to unmute your phone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh,
Good
thank you.
afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today, this afternoon. I work in the Home Office within what is called as the Foreign National Offenders Returns Command. Mainly, we deal with foreign nationals who've committed crime in the UK and therefore are liable to deportation. That's the bulk of our work, but we also deal with some of the cases where even though the person may have committed criminality, if their criminality doesn't reach that threshold for deportation, then we'll consider whether there are other avenues to take any enforcement action against them. In terms of our work, as the name says on the tin, foreign national criminals, we deal with individuals who are not British nationals, i.e. they hold a nationality from outside the UK, and if they've committed a crime within the UK which has resulted in a custodial sentence, irrespective of the length of the sentence, the prison services are statutorily obliged to refer those cases to us, and depending on the nature of the crime and the length of the sentence, we will then review whether deportation criteria is met, and if so, we would then seek to pursue deportation against the individual. Bulk of our referrals come from the prisons, but there are times when we are referred cases directly from the police. For example, if they've encountered someone in their normal work, and they believe that the person is not entitled to remain in the country, then they may refer that case to the FNORC. We are normally colloquially referred to as FNORC, Foreign National Offenders Returns Command. So they will refer to us the case. The case may also be referred from one of our enforcement teams if they've, for example, encountered someone as part of their normal enforcement activity. They've encountered someone who they believe is not entitled to remain in this country and has committed a crime in the country. They will refer the case to us. It could be someone who's returned in breach of the deportation order, and a person who's returned in breach of the deportation order will also be liable to be deported again. Obviously, there would be avenues available to the individual to resist the deportation, but in theory, the person would be liable to deportation at that stage. The person can be referred to us by courts at times. Once the magistrate or whichever court the person is being tried at, if the judge feels that the criminality is serious enough for the court to recommend deportation, then the court would recommend deportation, and the case is referred to us through that route. The individual can also be referred to us through the Youth Justice Board, and if they encounter someone who they believe is likely to be liable to deportation, they would refer the case to us. But in the main, I would say upwards of 90% of our cases are referred to us by the prison services. And that is once the person has been convicted of an offense and they are sent to prison, then under statute, the prisons are obliged to refer the case to us within 10 days of the person being sentenced. Now, in terms of deportation, there are various routes to deportation. First, as I've just touched upon, the court-recommended deportation, i.e., if the criminal court recommends the person's deportation, then we will consider whether the deportation criteria is met, and we will pursue deportation for that individual. The second cohort of cases where we consider deportation are what are normally referred to as auto-deport cases, i.e., anyone who's been convicted and given a sentence of at the very least 12 months. And this has to be a single sentence for a single crime. Occasionally, you may know that a person may be convicted of several offenses at the same time and may be given several different tariffs for each of the counts. Now, for auto deportation to apply, the person ought to have been convicted of a single offense and given for that single offense at the minimum 12 months custodial sentence. If that has happened, then the person would be subject to auto deportation. And what in general that means is the Secretary of State doesn't have any discretion. The statute mandates that the Secretary of State deports that person, i.e., who's subject to auto deport provision, i.e., someone who's been convicted of a sentence and given longer than 12 months custodial sentence. The Secretary of State doesn't have a discretion. We must deport that person unless there are certain exceptions that apply. Now, I won't go into too much detail about the exceptions, but they are the kinds of exceptions. For example, someone who was under the age of 18 at the time they committed the offense, or they are a genuine refugee and they have been able to demonstrate a well-founded fear of persecution on return. Another exception could be if the person's removal is likely to breach their human rights, whether it's human rights in relation to Article 3, i.e. inhumane and degrading treatment, or it's in relation to family life or private life. So if those exceptions are met, then we can't pursue deportation under auto deport provisions. But we can nevertheless pursue deportation on what is called as conducive grounds under the 1971 Act. This is the third sort of cohort of cases where even if the person has been given a custodial sentence of less than 12 months, if the offense they've committed is deemed to have caused serious harm, then we can still pursue conducive grounds. Or if the person is a persistent offender, i.e., the person has been convicted of several offenses in a very short period of time, and the rule of thumb is if the person carries on committing crime, there's no sort of certain number of offenses they ought to have committed in order to sort of meet that threshold.
You're on mute, Jags. Somebody's put you on mute. Oh yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
can you hear?
Yes, now, thank you.
I don't know what happened there. Sorry. The third cohort I was saying was the conducive deportation, whereby someone has committed an offense and been given a sentence of less than 12 months, But if we consider that the offense has caused serious harm either to an individual or to the community at large, then we would seek to pursue deportation. And in general, offenses relating to drugs, offenses relating to violence, or offenses relating to sexual harm, these will be considered as offenses which have caused serious harm. So anyone who's even if they've been given a custodial sentence of less than 12 months, we will consider pursuing deportation on conducive grounds. And the final category are cohorts of cases for EEA nationals. Now, obviously, following Brexit, there have been changes to the regulations, but anyone who is a relevant person as defined by the withdrawal agreement, if the person is a relevant person, then we would seek to pursue deportation as long as the public policy tests are met. Those are the sort of different cohorts of deportation we would pursue. The next I'd like to sort of touch briefly upon the process itself. What is the general process followed for deportation? As I mentioned initially, the case would be referred to us where the referring department considers that deportation may be appropriate, whether it's the police, our enforcement teams, the courts, or the prison services. Once they refer the case to us, we will consider whether deportation criteria is met. If we do consider that deportation criteria is met, we would issue the person with a deportation decision. Now, this is normally called as the stage 1 decision. This effectively informs the person of the liability of their deportation and also invites the person to inform us of any reasons why they want to resist deportation. They could tell us any reasons why they believe that they should not be deported from this country. More often than not, the representations that are received are in relation to family and private life. Individuals may have been living in this country for a very long time. They may have some sort of leave in this country. They may have been working for a very long time. They may have family and friends in this country. So more often than not, the representations that are received are based on human rights, family life or private life reasons. But the person can also make an asylum claim and seek to resist deportation on protection grounds, what are referred to as protection grounds. The other grounds could be a person may claim to be a victim of trafficking and seek to resist deportation on those grounds. Once the stage 1 is issued to a person, the person has 20 working days to make those representations and inform us of why they don't want to be deported. Once we've received those representations, we would consider those and make a decision. Obviously, if we take a view that the person has a valid claim, whether it's in relation to family life, private life, or asylum grounds, then we would grant them leave appropriately as the individual circumstances dictate. But if we refuse that application, then we would issue what we describe as the stage 2 decision, which is effectively a confirmation of the deportation decision which was issued initially at the stage 1 stage. Included in that decision would be a refusal of the person's human rights or asylum claim. And depending again on the nature and the merits of the claim they have raised, the person may or may not get an appeal right in country. If they are given an appeal right, then they'll be able to exercise that appeal right before they are deported. But if, having been refused asylum or human rights by the Home Office and having exercised their appeal rights unsuccessfully, the person reaches the end of the appeal process, they would at that stage be liable to deportation, and we would at that stage seek to deport them from the country. Now, the signing of a deportation order has various legal implications on the individual. The first being, if the person had previously been granted any form of leave, the signing of a deportation order would automatically invalidate any previously held leave. So if the person had previously, for example, been granted leave as a student, leave as a spouse of someone living in this country, leave as a refugee, leave as whatever kind of leave the person may have been granted, the signing of the deportation order would automatically invalidate the leave. And the second consequence of that is, once the deportation order is enforced, i.e., the person has been physically deported from the country, that would act as a bar to the person's return back to the UK as long as the deportation order remains extant. So if the person wants to return back to the UK, having previously been served with a deportation order, they would first need to seek to have that deportation order revoked. If the deportation order is not revoked, any application for entry clearance the person makes would automatically be refused. The entry clearance officer does not have any discretion. The deportation order mandates the person's application to be refused. So those are the sort of legal implications for someone to be subject to a deportation order. Even if someone has returned back, for example, returned back unlawfully through clandestine means, having had a deportation order in place for them, then they would still be liable for deportation at that stage. Now, I was asked to briefly touch upon administrative removal so that there is some clarity about the difference between deportation and administrative removal. Just to give you a brief background, prior to the 1999 Act being enacted, every kind of removal was deportation, irrespective of why the person was being removed from the country. Every removal was defined as a deportation, even if the person had not been convicted of any criminality. They would be deported from the country. But since 1999 Act, non-criminality related removals were then defined as administrative removals. Now, these, under Section 10 of the 1999 Act, these apply to people who should have leave in the country, but don't have leave, and therefore are liable to be removed from the country. So anyone who should have leave, but does not have leave, if they are encountered, then they would be liable to administrative removal. Now, normally, these apply to illegal entrants, a person who's come into the country through clandestine means or by using a false document. They would be regarded as illegal entrants. Now, the next category is overstayers. Anyone who's overstayed beyond their leave. Someone may have been granted 6 months leave, and if they overstay beyond that leave, then they would be regarded as overstayers and therefore be liable to administrative removal. The third cohort is anyone who is working in breach of their conditions. So different visas have different conditions attached to it. If a person is working in breach of their conditions, then they would be liable to administrative removal. The next cohort is anyone who's obtained leave through deception. If anyone has obtained leave through deception, they would be liable to administrative removal. Now, the final cohort is, in certain circumstances, family members of all of the above, i.e., family members of illegal entrants, family members of overstayers, family members of workers in breach, or those who obtained leave through deception. Even they could be liable through administrative removal. So effectively, for deportation to have been carried out, you more often than not would require the person to have been convicted of an offense in this country, whereas administrative removal, it's not the same. You don't have to have been convicted of an offense, even if you've been convicted or if you've committed an immigration offense. All of these categories, illegal entrant, overstayers, workers in breach, they're immigration offenses. So anyone who's committed an immigration offense, then they would be liable to administrative removal. Now, depending on the circumstances of each of the case, anyone who is subject to admin removal will also face mandatory refusal on return, but the periods for which they are liable to be refused will vary depending on the circumstances. Now, it's a long list. I won't go through the whole list, but it could vary from someone being banned to return from 6 months, ranging up to 10 years. So that's the effectively differences in a nutshell between deportation and admin removal. That brings to the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. Unfortunately, I need to leave in about 10 minutes. That's why I've requested Laura to allow me to take questions at this stage rather than at the end of the session. I'll really appreciate it if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer any.
Thank you very much, Jack. That was, I think somebody rightly put in the box, that was a scary session, but I know you didn't mean to scare us. You just meant to warn us, so we stay within the ambit of the law. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. One of the questions I have already for you is, I mean, are there maybe category of petty crimes? Because when people think about crime, of course, they think about serious crime, sexual offenses, but are there petty crimes that can even lead to deportation? That's a question number one. Another question linked to that is traffic offenses. I mean, where does that sit in relation to deportation? So, for example, driving without a license, or the usual traffic offenses. Maybe you want to speak on that a little bit, and let's get your view on that.
Sure. As I mentioned, there is a possibility what we a layperson may regard as a petty offense. It can, in certain circumstances, lead to deportation being considered. But it'll all depend on what kind of serious harm that offense has led to. Or it could be a person who may be convicted of several petty offenses and is defined as a persistent offender, even if they have not been given a custodial sentence for any of the offenses. If they've been convicted one after other for several offenses, then it may lead to deportation being considered. In terms of trafficking offenses, someone who's been convicted of, for example, ends up speeding, that is not going to lead to any deportation. But as you know, trafficking offenses is a wide range. You could end up drink driving and killing someone. Obviously, that is a different level of crime, and it could well lead to deportation.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I mean, you did a great job in terms of the differences between the admin removal and deportation. But it looks to me, I mean, maybe the question here is, are you saying avoid offense, avoid deportation, avoid immigration offenses, avoid admin removal? Is that what you're saying in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, what I'm saying is, if someone has been given leave with condition, then the presumption is that the person complies with those conditions.
Okay.
Now, those conditions could be conditions not to work, not to study, not to indulge in employment, or to leave within the specified time they've been given visa for.
Okay.
Now, if they comply, then there's no reason to be concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't comply, then obviously there is at least a possibility of enforcement action being taken.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. I mean, there's a question on the platform. I'm going to come to that. I mean, going back to, I mean, we deal with a lot of international students in this sort of environment. We are in Cambridge, but a typical gray area for student is working in breach of visa conditions. So perhaps where you've been given 20 hours, you've exceeded 20 hours. So, I mean, for the layman, is that a criminal offense, or is that just an immigration offense?
It would be an immigration offense, but it can result in the person being removed effectively, instantly. There is no appeal right against that. So if the person is found to be working in breach of their conditions, then the person exposes themselves to risk of being removed relatively swiftly.
Okay. Right. I'll take a question from the platform. I think we've got Kata. I don't know your name, but it says Kata and Merger. You've got your hand raised. But I hope this question is related to what has just been spoken about, because we do have Q&A at the end. So I hope it's concerning what we've just heard. Kata and Merger.
Yeah, sorry. My pleasure. My name is Godson Azu. I'm the Vice President of the Nigerians community in Cambridgeshire area, and I live here in Peterborough. My question is straightforward. I hear the scenarios regarding deportation, administrative removal, and condition. But what I'm asking is, what advice would you ever give, most especially for most of our community members who invariably has come here to study? One, they have outlived their visa of study and have integrated into the society illegally. What advice will you give for them to be able to find themselves back into the mainstream and regularize themselves? And secondly, we have a couple of our community members who also have ended up in marriages that are broken up, and they have children, but no don't have status, don't have a stay status, and they've been kind of demoralized by legal advice that are getting from legal immigration lawyers who are not telling them the obvious truth on how to get out of the quandrum. What would be your advice for people who are in these circumstances? One, students who have outlived their stay and are in the system and are struggling to find themselves into the stream of regularization, and those who ended up in broken marriages due to misadvice or whatever, and are having children but are struggling with life because they are not regularized. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to let, what I'll just say, Jag, is perhaps answer the deportation part of that question, because we will deal with this at the end. So let me just say to students, for those who want to know more, the next session will really deal with that. But I mean, you are a wise man, Jag. You just want to give us some kind of, I know you're going to be leaving us very soon. Based on that question, any wise, quick counsel to that effect?
Well, the only counsel I can give is not to be in that position in the first place, i.e. to comply with the conditions that you've been given. And if you feel, for example, during the currency of your leave, you have accrued a different kind of entitlement, to make an application for that during the currency of the leave, so that you don't fall foul of any of the immigration laws. Beyond that, I think it's difficult for me to sort of give actual advice, because that would be conflict of interest. All I can say is speak to your solicitor and get them to give you the right advice to make the right kind of application, whatever that application may be. What in general terms I would say is it's much better to make an application and make yourself known to the authorities, as opposed to stay underground and try to hide away from the authorities.
Thank you very much, Jack. That's wise counsel. I have one more question for you, and I would hopefully let you go after that. There's a question on the platform that's come to me directly, and it says, can someone whose sponsorship was withdrawn by the sponsor and have been given 3 months by the Home Office be deported before finding another job?
Yeah, again, it would be admin removal rather than deportation, because from the question, it seems the person is not talking about criminality related issues, and the counsel would be that the person should try to find another sponsor and make a new application within the specified time.
Fantastic. Jack, thank you very much for taking time out to be with us this afternoon. And I hope we leave with the counsel you gave us. Don't be in that position in the first place.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice afternoon, everyone.
You too. Thank you. Right, I'm going to hand back to Laura now to introduce the next speaker. Thank you.
Right, okay, thank you, Jack. Such amazing knowledge. So I hope everyone has kind of got something from what he has said today. And I'm going to move on to Rebecca. Rebecca will be giving us some insight in regards to just a student overview, and also just briefly speak on the e-visa policy as well. Over to you, Rebecca. And then you can ask questions after, generic question, after Rebecca's finished. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura, and good afternoon, everyone. So as I said before, I'm one of the project managers on the e-visa project. So I'm going to just give you a very brief overview with what e-visa is all about. So we are decommissioning biometric cards and vignettes, and we're making everything digitized. So next year, February 2024, that's when it starts. When you make a new application, you would not receive The phasing of the cards is up to the end of 2024. So some of you will still receive it, but new applications will have a digital account rather than being issued with a BRP. So that's what we're doing. Those who have legacy indefinite leave to remain. So there are some cases where we have extant leave holders where they've come into the UK many years ago and they've had their indefinite leave to remain in a wet ink stamp form or a vignette endorsed in their passport. We're going to be inviting them to create an account so that we can have a digital record and we have a digital leave for them rather than having to all the time travel with their passport. So that's what we are doing. We are digitizing UK borders. It's a fun time for immigration officers and every project officer involved in this project. So if you do get a letter asking you next year, asking you to go on to a website or a link from the Home Office and make sure that it is from gov.uk. We will not be asking you to go on any other platform to make applications apart from gov.uk. You can use that and then apply for a digital record. So that's what we're doing in terms of the e-visa project. In terms of students, I'll just give a brief overview, and I think we'll spend more time in answering questions and before we come to the end of the session. So I think JAG has done a very good job in terms of highlighting immigration offenses and breaching your student limit. If they've given you a student visa and you have a limited time on it saying that you have to work for a specific time, i.e. 10 hours or 20 hours during term time, and you decide, well, you have to pay your fees and therefore you're working more than 20 hours, you are breaching your conditions on your visa, and it can lead to you being removed from the UK. So that's something that we have to be very mindful of. However, if the school, if the uni is on break, you are more than fine to work as many hours as you can, but never during term time. So I encourage you to again just make sure that you are following what the restrictions are saying, because if you don't, you have yourself to be blamed when enforcement does encounter you or go to the place that you're working and you find yourself being arrested or detained by an enforcement officer.
I think that you can get arrested.
Sorry, Rebecca, I think I muted you in the process of muting somebody else.
All right, sorry about that. Yeah, so we have this year, the students in previous had the opportunity to switch in country. So they come in with a student visa because it was the easiest visas to apply for. So people who have no intentions of studying will apply for a student visa. They come into the UK and they switch in country to do a care work job or work in the NHS, and therefore they don't attend school. So they could do that. However, since summer this year, we have closed that loophole. So students are not able to switch in country to any category. And that took effect in July this year. In January next year, what we will be doing is that students will not be able to bring their dependents into the UK anymore. So when I say graduates, what students, what am I talking about? I'm talking about those undergrads. So somebody who is coming here for a PhD, or somebody who is here for a PhD or a research program, can bring their dependents with them. However, if you come into the UK to study for your first degree or second degree or even your master's, you will not be able to have your dependents join you while you're doing your studies in the UK. So that's something that we are changing from the 1st of January. In terms of that overview, I mean, that's what I will say on that. So if people have questions that they would like to ask in terms of students or any immigration issues, I'm sure myself and other colleagues on the platform will be able to signpost you. Or what we don't do is we don't give advice. We are not solicitors. And as Laura said before, there are some applications that somebody's just sent a text message, and that flashed down is taking me back. Okay, so Laura did say earlier on in terms of the fact that some people can make applications themselves, but they choose to use a solicitor. If that is you and you have the money to do it, that's fine. But what I will say is that the solicitors do not have a special route to get in touch with the Home Office. Whatever you can do on gov.uk, that's exactly what the solicitor does. So you can do it. It's up to you if you want to use solicitors, and by all means, go ahead and do it. But most applications on gov.uk is a step-by-step process, and you can do that and upload the documents all by yourself. So that's where we are in terms of the overview. Laura, is it okay to take questions at this point, or do you want me to talk about anything further?
Do you want to please clarify the graduate's visa? Because some people are, as much as I know you said it so many times.
But you know, the graduate scheme, are we talking about the
graduate scheme? Graduate scheme, sorry. Yeah, graduate scheme. Because some people do still ask questions about it. Maybe they just come into the country, they're not just aware, and they just want to know more for going forward.
Okay, so the graduate scheme, so far as I'm concerned, is one of the good things that we have actually done and encouraging students to apply for once they finish studying. It gives you the opportunity to work and get experience in the UK. So once you finish studying, you can apply for the graduate scheme, and it would, if you are successful, you will get 2 years. Not everybody qualifies, so just be very mindful of that. So once a caseworker has assessed your application and you've been granted 2 years, you can do any job that you want. So for instance, if you've studied in IT, but you've decided, you know what, I don't want any IT job, I want to go into finance, you can use that graduate scheme to find a job in finance. Some people would open a cleaning company. It's exactly whatever you want to do within that 2 years is up to you. However, come that 2 years and you haven't got a sponsor to sponsor you into a skilled worker route, then you will find yourself in trouble because you will end up after the 2 years being illegal in the UK. And as Jack said earlier on, you will find yourself committing an immigration offense. And if enforcement does encounter you, you will be subject to admin removals. So that's the graduate scheme.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. I think unless David has anything to add, I think I'll leave you to check on the sidebar for questions.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks. I think that's brilliant. We've got a lot of questions that have been coming in directly and indirectly. And I think in no particular order, perhaps we'll start with, there was one question that came in earlier, which I know you cannot give specifics, but somebody was asking, how does the Home Office know that I've been clocking more than 20 hours? I'm sorry, but I had to ask that question.
That's fine. Yeah. Listen, the Home Office looks after we're part of the civil service, and civil servants work with other government departments. So when you do work, HMRC have your record on your record of employment. And if the Home Office want to find out, we will certainly find out how many hours you worked. If there's so many ways we can do that. If enforcement that come to your workplace and they find, they look into the books and they realize that you're working more than you should have worked, not only are you going to be detained, but your employers will be fined as well. So the employers are very careful. Some of them are very, very careful in terms of ensuring that they do not breach that rule as well. So we have ways and means of finding out.
So Big Brother is watching pretty much. Right. There's another question here. I think it's still linked to perhaps is a B part of that question. And that question is, what about jobs such as cash in hand? Does it also count? Because I think you have students who may be doing the legal 20 hours, but then of course, the answer seems obvious to me, but it's probably best to hear from the authorities directly.
If you're working more than 24 hours, whether cash in hand or you're getting paid through the right legitimate process, you're still reaching your student condition. If it states on your visa, which I will encourage everybody to look at what your entry clearance says, so that you are informed, and when you get encountered by immigration, at least you know that you're doing the right thing. So make sure that if it says 20 hours, that's the 20 hours you work, whether illegal, whether cash in hand, or you're doing it in a proper route. It's If it's term time, it's only 20 hours. And some people do get 10 hours, by the way.
Okay. Awesome. There's still a question on term time, and I think this is from Dr. Ugo, and it says, I'd like some clarification on what is meant by term time. The area I would like clarification is when a student hands in the dissertation, are they able to work in excess of 20 hours, or do they still have to wait? So I guess what Dr. Ugo is saying is I've handed in my work, I'm no longer in term. The school calendar might still say it's term time, but I'm done with my work. Is that not? Yeah.
Sorry.
Please, carry on.
So that's something that you need to, term time will be subjected in terms of how the university operates.
Okay.
So if you've handed your thesis in, or you've handed everything that you needed to hand it in, so far as you can send, you finish with the university, but the university is still in operation, approach and speak to one of your, I think they call them welfare officers, okay, and find out what you can and can't do in terms of the fact that the school is in operation. Because the fact that you've handed in your essays, and that doesn't mean that you can just still breach the immigration rules. So work with your universities. If they allow you to do that, make sure that it's in writing, so that when you get encountered by enforcement, at least you have that with you, and we will look at every case in its own merit. Okay,
awesome. I think this other question is still linked to the same question. As a part-time PhD student on the skilled worker visa, working in health and social care, would I be breaking any rule teaching part-time in health and social care?
I mean, what does your visa say? If your visa has limited you to a number of hours, then that's what you need to do. If you're working more than that, then yes, you are in breach of it.
Awesome. Let's talk about this whole care situation that it's quite obvious to all. I mean, it seems a mess at the moment. People coming into the country with some assurances of work, and they're coming in and that's not happening. I mean, for students or those in those sort of situation, I mean, what would you advise is the way forward?
It's not so much an advice. It's just first of all, if you make an application directly, you shouldn't be paying any more. You shouldn't be paying money to an agent to make an application for you. Now, if somebody is charging you £500,000, 4,000 in some cases that we've been informed, and applying for a care, promise you the whole world that there's a job waiting for you, and they've been able to successfully apply for a visa for you to come into the UK, but when you've turned up, there isn't anything. First of all, I will report that, because we need to, as immigration, we need to ensure that people are, these agents are not putting people, I'll call them facilitators. They are not putting people in a vulnerable position, because when you come here and you don't know anybody, you find yourself destitute. And that's where Janet was saying earlier on, you find yourself in a vulnerable situations where you get exploited. And we don't want that to happen to you. So if you fall in a victim with this care, skilled worker and other people using you to, get other agents have used you to enter the UK, but then when you've turned up, there is no job. If you're on this platform, by all means, contact the host or contact Laura, and we will signpost you to the right place. But I would say, for the first and foremost, do the research yourself. If you want to come to the UK to work for a care company, definitely get in touch with the care company yourself. 100% confirm that you've got a job, you've done the necessary process that you need to do, and they have sponsored your application. When you come to the UK, that job will be waiting for you because you went through the right process. So I will encourage everybody to do that. We need to identify who the real perpetrators are, not the Home Office. People are abusing people, and we need to stop that in the first instance. You shouldn't be paying money to anybody for them to help you apply for a visa.
Thank you very much. There's another question, which, once again, the answer may seem obvious, but it's best to come from the Home Office. Can someone on a visit visa get a visa, switch their visa if they get a job whilst in the UK on a visit visa?
The answer is no. Very simple.
Very simple.
If you've got a job, if you've one of the few people who come into the UK and your talent has been identified by somebody and they feel, well, I can sponsor you, you need to get them to sponsor your application, but you have to go back to your home country for the process to take place, and you'll be issued with a visa to come to the UK and work for that company.
Okay. I think this person is just worried about the time they get back home, you know, things delayed, COVID,
I know.
lockdown.
I know. I give you a very typical example. I went to, for those who don't know, my mom, I'm from Ghana. After having my last baby, I decided, I'm taking a year off maternity leave and go and spend time in Ghana with my parents. But we hold British passports. So I had to apply for a visa, a 3 months visa they gave us. I was going to be there for more than 3 months. What I did after the 3 months, and if I hadn't done that, I would be illegal in Ghana, believe it or not. Even though I speak 5 or 6 of the languages, I'll be illegal. Yeah. So what I did, I went to the Interior Affairs and applied for extension. And he extended, I paid money for it, and I extended my leave. They didn't give me permission to work, so I couldn't work. Even though by law I could, because my descendants are, from Ghana, and I could work. But because I hold a British passport, I could not work in Ghana. Those are the rules. If I hadn't followed it and I on my way back to the UK at the airport, I would have been stopped by an immigration officer, and I would be dealt with according to what the immigration rule says. It's like that everywhere in the world. Every country has its own immigration rules. So I understand the frustration. You have to wait. I would rather go back to your home country and wait and follow the right process, rather than stay in the UK legally and get encountered by an enforcement officer who is doing their job, by the way, and they will enforce the immigration rules, and you find yourself being administratively removed back to your country. That way, it will be difficult for you to come back to the UK. So you end up realizing that if you had gone, the time that you spent there, you would have benefited you more than you being removed out of the UK.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Rebecca. And another question, and I think this has also been dealt with. One has graduated, but your student visa hasn't expired. Can one work full time? So I've graduated, but my visa hasn't expired yet. Can I start working full time in the interim?
So your student visa is not a work permit, a full-time work permit.
Okay.
If we get out of the way, because there are restrictions on there, the first and foremost thing that you have to do with a student visa is to study. If you finish doing your studying, then you can apply for the graduate scheme.
Okay.
I wouldn't use my student visa to be working full-time, because that doesn't allow you to do that during term time. So if you finish studying and you've passed your exams, or you're waiting for your exams, your results, make the application now and go through the right process. Again, you are breaching the immigration rules.
Awesome. Another question is, can the students switch to another type of visa after the course end date, though not completed?
Okay, I think I said this earlier on. Students, since the summer of this year, you can't switch in country anymore. You could before, but since so many people abused that route, they stopped studying and everybody was going through switching and working. That loophole has been closed. You can't switch your visa in the UK anymore.
Okay, that's a good one. What can one do if one what can one do if one fails a course and the time to rerun such a course is after the expiration of one's BRP? So I failed the course, but my BRP is about to expire, but I can't take, I wouldn't have enough leave to retake the course again. What would you advise? Okay, so I mean, if your visa comes to an end and there's no application in the Home Office, then unfortunately you are here as an overstayer. Let's clear that out of the way. Secondly, if you failed your exams, you have welfare officers, I believe, in universities. So contact a welfare officer, let them know what they would have known anyway what has happened, but let them know and your intentions to rewrite your exams. If that is available to you, the university will support an extension of your visa. Thank you very much. I'm just going to pause on a lot of student questions still coming in, but there's something, I think maybe Janet is still here, one of the colleagues from the Home Office, and talking about modern day slavery and safeguarding. As people become very desperate, of course, they become victims. This question relates to obviously still cash in hand and being paid below the national minimum wage. I mean, what steps can such a student take? I mean, but they're asking now from a sort of safeguarding modern day slavery perspective as well.
So being paid below the minimum wage is a modern slavery offence, so they should report it. So I would suggest they report it to the police or go to Citizens Advice, or they can contact Unseen, who they run the National Modern Slavery Helpline. So anybody can phone them. It's a free phone number, and they will then put whoever it is that's in who needs the help in touch with either immigration if they've got an outstanding application, because then we would act as that first responder, or it may be a charity, or it may be the police. But don't forget, any cash in hand payments have to be counted towards your 20 hours. It can't be, well, I'm doing a job and I'm doing my 20 hours and I'm doing a little bit on the side and they're not paying me properly. It all has to, you have to stay within the rules.
And
Awesome.
the question I would ask this person is, why are you working cash in hand when you can legitimately work, 20 hours or even more hours after 10 time? Why would you want to go down that route and put yourself in that vulnerable position?
And don't forget, having pay slips and a proper record of your salary can demonstrate, if you do get asked about it, or if somebody does go to your place of employment, that you are actually within the law. So I would say, if it's cash in hand or it's too good to be true, don't do it. There's loads of jobs out there that are real jobs, paying properly with contracts, etc. Don't do it, because I would say that to anybody, not just a foreign national or a student. I'd say that don't do it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I think there's also a culture issue where you talk about safeguarding. I mean, often in some cultures, safeguarding is seen as protecting children. But I don't know if you want to speak into where adults also come into the picture.
Adults can be just as vulnerable as everybody else. There's lots of reasons for it. There could be things that are going on at home that make them vulnerable. They could be they've been coerced or bullied at work. Well, if you don't do X or you don't take cash in hand, I'm going to tell immigration or I'm going to tell the police. There could be mental health issues. There could be physical health issues. Everybody can be vulnerable, and that vulnerability can change over time. So, for example, a good one is a mental health issue. Somebody could be good 1 month and have poor mental health the next month. So anybody can be vulnerable. So our obligations are to safeguard everybody, not just children.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Janet. I think this is for Suhal. You spoke about careers in the civil service. Somebody here is asking, I'm a tech expert. You mentioned everything but technology. Are there positions, opportunities in the civil service?
Of course.
For those with tech skills?
There are, of course, there are teams out there, departments out there that specifically specialize in tech. Whether that's specific, the hardware tech, or you've got cyber teams out there as well. Every policy profession, I'll be surprised if there isn't, but we're covered in the civil service, because we need that to run the country. So have a look online. And as Laura mentioned, in the coming months, I'd hope we'd put a session on social mobility, which looks at resources not just being perceived as London-centric. We're looking at national in terms of funding and resources going up and supporting infrastructure, business. Departments need the technology, and you'll see that across the country, and civil servants will help drive that. So yes, there are technology jobs out there.
And in my day-to-day job, I work with tech guys all day long. So
awesome. Thank you very much for that. There's another question here, a lot of student questions as you'd expect. Can a student switch to a dependent visa after the course end date?
Okay, I've said this several times. You can't switch anymore. It ended during the summer this year. You can't do it.
All right. So that's the final answer on that. You cannot switch anymore. I'm not sure if it's a different way of asking the same questions, but you've heard it again. If we have an organization willing to sponsor after graduation, can't we switch visa to tier 2 in the UK?
Again, if it's a student visa, the answer is you can't do in-country switch. So if you find an organization who is willing to sponsor you, then yeah, let them start the process, return back to your home country and wait for your visa to be issued.
Good question. Okay, there's another question here about route to citizenships in years it must take. Is there a definite period or is there a shifting goalpost on that?
That question is very broad because I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what you mean.
I'm guessing what this person means is that we've been told that after you come in on a work visa or sponsored, and then it leads to indefinite leave to remain and then citizenship. I think this person is trying to predict how long this process will take.
How long is it
now?
So, I mean, if you've come here, for instance, I'll give you a very good example. You've come here on a marriage visa. They will give you 2.5 years before when you arrive. After the 2.5 years, you'll be given another 2.5 years. And after that, you apply for indefinite leave to remain. And then after your indefinite leave to remain, you do your naturalization. And then after your naturalization, you apply for a British passport, or you can apply for a right of abroad. That's entirely up to your decision that you have to make. But that is the process.
Okay, awesome. So it's difficult to say, but it depends on your unique circumstances as well from the sound of things. Is that what
you just flagged up now? Are there opportunities for fresh graduates to apply for civil service jobs? Unfortunately, with civil service job, you should have indefinite leave to remain in the UK. It doesn't matter what passport you hold, but what matters is that you have to have indefinite leave to remain. And we do not sponsor work permits.
Okay. Somebody's asking, is that not discriminatory?
No.
No. Okay.
No. What are we discriminating against? Good question. This person, because if we are, we need to enforce the rules. So how can you use a short-term visa to come and work for the Home Office, and then after that, what happens? We deal with sensitive issues, and so we need people long-term, and you go through a lot of security. Over the years, you go through a security process. So if you've got 1 year with your with your student visa and you want an internship, or you can do it in other companies, but to come into the civil service, you have to have indefinite leave to remain. And as I said, we are blind to passport. It doesn't matter what passport you hold, but you should have indefinite leave to remain.
I was just going to say, adding to Rebecca, I've had the same security checks, even though I was born here, as my colleagues who may not have been born here. Who may hold dual nationality. So the security checks and the criteria for joining the civil service is the same for everybody. So it's not sort of discriminatory. It's that those are the laws. They are there for a reason, for the security of our country, etc. And that's what they are.
And just on that, Janet, as well, there's an official website out there looking at specific jobs for national security. So if you look at national/security.campaign.gov.uk, that will give you more information about even specific types of jobs. As Janet mentioned, you need levels of clearance. And the campaign there promotes diversity inclusion, actually, contrary to what the belief may be. We want a diverse workforce, and there's benefits of that. So if you look at that, it will tell you what national security is, what are the criteria, what are the career opportunities, what you need to do to apply. So if you look on national/security.campaign.gov.uk, you can have a look on that.
Yeah. And the other thing is that in some jobs in the civil service, if you don't hold a British passport, you won't qualify for getting that job.
Okay. Awesome. So that sensitive positions and so many other reasons. Thank you very much. There's a question here as well, and this question concerns students who are currently in the UK, but they've been victims of vulnerability. So they're already struggling with things like finance, struggling with things like accommodation. Are there specific helplines or Home Office contacts they can also be in touch with? So they've come in promised heaven on earth in the UK, but the reality hasn't matched up. What's the way forward for them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very sorry if anybody's on this platform and they found themselves in that position. We've heard this so many times. The first thing is that even when a family member promises you the world, you'll be staying with them when you come, and you cover your school fees, everything will be paid for, whatever they promise you. Situations do change. And therefore, when you come in, they are not able to accommodate you. They are not able to do what they promised that you do. And you find yourself in that vulnerable situation. What I would ask myself if I was in that situation is that, is it worth me going through this vulnerability for somebody to exploit me? Am I better off going back to my home country until I'm ready to, make sure that I have all the funds to support my education and come back again? If that opportunity is available to you, then I would say, why don't you go back to your home country and make sure that things are in place before you come in? I've had questions where people are asked, they've come into the UK and you're asking to apply for students, what did I call it again? Sorry, my mind's just gone blank.
Loan?
Student loan. The answer is no, you can't. You're a foreign student. So I would say to you, if you find yourself in a situation where you are not able to sponsor yourself or you're not able to finance your education anymore, you have to make some tough decisions on what to do next so that you don't find yourself in a vulnerable situation. In terms of help, on your visa, it will tell you that you're not entitled to any public funds. It stays very clearly on that visa. So the answer would be very difficult, but it would be a no. There wouldn't be any avenue, unless, of course, if you go to a charity and they're more than happy to not sponsor you, but to help with food and maybe signpost you to accommodation. But it'll be for a short term. What you need to look at is the long term. Janet, you can come in here.
Yeah, the idea of coming here as to be a student is that you're supposed to prove to the visa officers, if you're a visa national, that you can support and accommodate yourself without recourse to public funds for the period of your course. And the work is incidental to your studies. It's not supposed to be you use a student visa to come here and then work full time. So like Rebecca says, if you can't afford it, then you need to have that conversation. It would be exactly the same for me if I went to America as a student and found myself unable to afford it. It's no different. It's not, the UK don't treat their students any differently. If you can't afford something, then you need to have that conversation. And I know that sounds very harsh, but if that was the case, if the government would say, oh, well, okay, come in and anybody who can't afford it will just pay for it, it's not going to work that way. It wouldn't happen if I went to America. I know it doesn't happen if I went to Nigeria or Ghana. So you just have to make sure that you can afford it and be realistic. And I know that's probably harsh, that's probably hard, and maybe people don't want to because it's getting in the way of your dreams and aspirations. But I'm sorry, but that has to be the reality, especially at the moment when everything costs so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. There's a question here, and I'm sure this is also being dealt with, but it says, does the rule of no in-country switch apply to student dependents as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
So whatever happens to your main applicant happens to a dependent.
Okay. All right. And there's another question here is, can I switch from a work visa to a spouse visa after 3 years? And does that still count to ILR, or how long will it take for me to get my ILR if my spouse is?
So ILR, for those who don't know what ILR is indefinite leave to remain.
Yes.
And we've said this before earlier on, I can't give you a specific time as to how long it's going to take for you to reach that stage. I mean, nothing stops you from marrying in the UK. And if your work permit has not got any restrictions in terms of switching, then yeah, you can do that if you want, but you will not be able to have the two visas operating at the same time. So if you're issued with a marriage visa, your work visa will be cancelled. You only have one visa operating at any given time.
Good. There's another question still linked to marriages. I'm not sure why we're getting a lot of marriages questions today, but there must be a reason.
Something important that needs to be done.
And the question is, would my visa still be valid even after a divorce? I'm guessing maybe the main applicant is the one with the superior stay. How does that work when the marriage is no longer existent?
So if you're dependent and you divorce,
yes,
then the visa that you had, because the visa was issued to you because you had a relationship with your main applicant, if there is no relationship, then there is no dependency, if that makes sense. So yes, after your divorce, unfortunately, if the divorce, and it will be from the main applicant, then if I said you won't be a dependent anymore, which means you will not be able to hold a dependent visa. And if the Home Office are informed of the divorce, we will cancel that visa and give you, I believe it was 60 days. I don't know if it's reverted to 30 days, but they will give you a time limit to leave the country.
Hey, right. It's getting more quieter on this platform, but
I know. I think we've got to a stage where we need to have honest conversation.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we do sugarcoat some of these areas, and people think that they can breach immigration rules. And unfortunately, if we don't give them the right information, they'll find themselves in positions that they never dreamed would happen to them. So I think it's time to have honest conversation. This platform is doing exactly that.
Thank you. There's a question here, but I don't really understand. It's a coded question. Is there any specific CGP needed for one to apply for extension after studies? Is that certificate or something? I'm not sure.
CGP, I haven't come across CGP, so I don't know what that means.
I
unless any of my colleagues know what that stands for.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Okay, well, maybe that person on the iPhone can let us know. Okay, it's a cumulative grade point. Is there any specific cumulative grade point needed for one to apply for extension after studies?
I mean, after you finish study, if there's a graduate scheme open to you, so I don't know why you need to accumulate grades. So if you finish your university and there's you're going to pass your exams and everything, the university is happy with you, you've paid all your fees, you've applied for a graduate scheme, you'll be given 2 years. And again, you can do that yourself. If you go to gap.uk, you don't need a solicitor for this. Don't pay anybody £500 to make the application for you. You can do this yourself. Just go to gap.uk. And one thing that we do, and I'm including myself, we don't like reading. The information is everything I've told you today is on gap.uk. The information is there. Do the research, because when it comes to immigration matters and everything, ignorance is not an excuse. So do the application. If you finish your studies and you want to go you want to live and work in the UK, apply for the graduate scheme.
Can I just add as well,
Yes.
going on what Rebecca said, is you can use a solicitor. I'm not saying that you can't, but how do you know that that solicitor is going to give you the right advice unless you do the research beforehand? And the other thing so we've Rebecca and I and some of our colleagues have done quite a few of these sessions. Please don't think or don't accept that, oh, my neighbour or my friend in church says X and I'm going to do that. You will only know what that person has told you. You won't know the whole story. So just they say, oh, I did this, this and this and it worked. Please don't accept that, because it won't be the same. Go away, do your reading. It's all on gov.uk, or go to the Citizens Advice Bureau, ask them for advice, but tell them the whole truth and then get the advice that you need. Don't tell them half the truth. So some of the sessions that we've been doing, and Rebecca they'll start with a question in the one-to-ones. And then when you say, oh, but what about this? Then the whole truth comes out. So nobody can give you informed advice on any level unless you give them the whole story, the truth, all of it, even if it's painful.
And I was also going to add as well that from what Rebecca and Janet has said, and because I'm coming as the African lead, I mean, I hear this all the time in talking to leaders. Just like Janet said, she's so on point. Every case is different. I must say that. It doesn't matter whether you're all the same students, you did the same visa. It's very, very important to know that for example, in my community, with African community, I've heard people say, this person did that, so why can't I do the same? Why can't I get the same visa? You will find, obviously we work in the Home Office, sometimes when you even go into cases, it's a different thing that you've been told than what the case is actually is. So you need to be very, very careful. And as Janet said, work on your own case. I mean, as we've all said here, make sure you are honest. Just be honest. If you're using a solicitor, tell them the truth. I've had solicitors tell me that people have come to them and they've only told one side of the story, Africans. And then when they go to make the applications, it comes back on the solicitor because now they have to kind of find a way to get them out of it. So please, I'm trying to say to everyone, just say the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and see what goes from there. And if you have to leave, go on VRS, we'll talk about that later, do that. If you have to find a way to make and regularize your status, that's where we're here. We're not here just to give you information, just to give you guidance. We're here to also let you know that just try your best to do the best you can to regularize your status. That is so imperative as far as we're concerned.
Thank you very much. That leads to my next question. But I'll let Mazi Godson Azu, he has a question. Godson?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, all right. Thank you very much, moderator. This is quite an exciting program or an event you put together here, and I'm glad to listen to all the discourse on it. As a community leader within the Nigerian community and the African diaspora here in the UK, I think this is something that we need on a regular basis within our communities to help people who are struggling to make themselves avail of this critical challenge of regularization in the society, who are indirectly subjected to the modern day slavery without having a voice to speak out. And I did ask a question earlier on, which is an experience. Somebody called my attention to a particular family, a woman who the husband has abandoned with 4 kids, and she's got no papers, and she's struggling. She's living in silence, struggling with job, taking care of 4 kids. And I was a bit worried how 1 in every 10 or 20 Nigerians or Africans are going through this challenge, and probably they are afraid to share their challenges, their problem. I feel that this kind of program, if well disseminated, put together and shared across every platform, that will enable these people have a voice out there to find a solution to their problem. We'll have less people with deprived mental problems that they are struggling to cope with, even as a family. It's very obvious amongst us, but most of us tend to be very protective because we don't want to be involved in somebody being deported. We don't want to be involved in being the one that reported somebody who is in an immigration challenge. But then there must be a leeway in which most of our young Africans in Nigeria and Ghana, Zimbabwe, in this country, that are facing this ridiculous misadvised opportunities. Some of them are here, overstay their documents, and because of friends and family advices, they find themselves in a deep situation where they are not able now to solve the problem. And so, but with this kind of programs we're putting together, with bringing people from the Home Office to be very open, honest, and sincere, giving not legally guided advice, but a humanitarian advice on what people need to know about their immigration status, regularization process, and to avoid being living in dark age in a modern society. There are thousands of Africans living in dark age in these countries, exploited daily. I know the border office cannot capture everybody, but there are still people living, working in this country in a dark age society in a modern world. And there's need to ensure through these platforms, advanced discussions, we get these people out into the light and find freedom for their life. And
thank you very much. I think your
Mr.
point has been, thank you very much, sir.
And I think, Mr. Azu, let me come in here and say that if the family that you've just highlighted, if they are in a destitute situation, to approach their local authority, there is a team within every borough, every local authority. There's a team called the No Recourse to Public Funds, and it only applies to families. So if you're a parent and you have a child or you have children, you can approach them. They will assess, not everybody qualifies for it. Let me make that very clear. The local authority will assess every case that comes to them, and they will try, if you meet their criteria, they will ensure that you are being moved from that vulnerable state or exploitation and into an accommodation. They're going to support you up until either you are removed or the Home Office gives you status to live in the UK. So I would signpost them first and foremost to go and approach their local authority and let the local authority know the truth about what is going on in terms of their immigration status and their vulnerability.
Can I just add as well, that, as I said before, we as a country, we as civil servants, the local authorities, the NHS, whoever, charities, we can't help unless you come forward and ask us for help. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So whilst I appreciate that there's people are getting the wrong advice, and you take your family, you take your friends, you take your fellow students, or you take the community's advice. If you need help, come forward and ask for help. What's the worst thing that can happen? We'll give you the help, or whoever it is will help you. We'll try and get you out of whatever situation you're in. But nobody's got a crystal ball. You have to ask for help. But likewise, you have to be honest about what's going on. Okay, so that lady and the children, she needs to go and make a refer. She needs to go and ask the local authority for assistance, and then it will go from there. Don't worry about the immigration status. That will still be here next week, next month, next year. Let's get, if that lady is vulnerable, she's in a bad position, she's got children, and it could be as well. This particular example was a lady, but it could be a dad. Go and sort the situation out first, and then everything else could be sorted later.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. So one other thing I must say is that the Home Office, one of their...
Sorry,
please, Laura.
David, I'm going to be very quick. I was just going to say, you know what, my colleagues are here from different remits of the business, and they're very knowledgeable about their work. And it's kind of sad that people are going through this and not knowing where to go. So like they both just said, for that lady, for example, with little children, it's so important, please, to reach out. And as they said, even if you think, just leave the immigration part for now. It's a humane thing that we need to think about. It's the person-centric. We are not going to remove a lady with 4 kids tomorrow just because she's got immigration issue. Please understand, I'm coming from the African community and I understand the fear factor. So please just flag up the situation. You must let people that can help know. And if they cannot help, they can at least signpost you to appropriate areas that they might be able to help you. But the most important thing is, please do not keep silence.
Thank you very much. And just, we won't be able to, we only have about 4 minutes to go because these are colleagues who are, everyone here is busy, colleagues are busy. I'm sure some of you need to get back to other assignments as well. But anything we cannot address today, for example, this lady with 4 children, do send me an email. I can get that across to Laura and the team, and they can take it from there. We often know the Home Office to be obviously doing their job, but sometimes we miss out the fact that it's actually also a compassionate institution as well. That's one of their core, maybe values or principles, so to say. So there's that compassionate side as well. So let's avail ourselves of the opportunities. I'm going to, at this point, just bring on the president of the Anglia Ruskin Nigerian University. But before I do that, was just one final question. I missed that. For somebody who has overstayed and visa in a mess and all that, and wishes to return home, how do we action this? They've been on the radar for so long, they want to go back home now.
Yeah. That person, I would say, David, get that person's details. Laura will signpost them to the right place. We will pay for your ticket to go home. And in some cases, you will get financial support so that when you get back to your home country, you're not destitute there. I cannot emphasize that you are better off in your home country than being in the UK and being vulnerable. We have had cases on another platform where people are sleeping outside under bridges. Why would you wouldn't do that in Nigeria? You wouldn't do that in Ghana. Why do you want to do that in the UK in this cold? Please, please, please don't put yourself in that vulnerable situation. Your family will be more than happy to have you back home than go through the stresses and the pain that you go through every day by being destitute. So please, I'm glad you've asked the question. If you do want to go home, we will take you on board. We will apply for your travel document, and Laura will signpost you to the right team. You will be supported to go back home with dignity.
Definitely. And thank you, Rebecca. That is just on point what you just said. If as you said, David, there's a man or woman, doesn't matter, that wants to go back, they've had enough, we have the service. And what I love most about the service is dignity.
Yeah.
You know, you go back with dignity. Nobody needs to know whether you overstayed or you had issues in the UK. It's with dignity. You go back on a British Airways or Virgin Airways. I can't remember what airways they're dealing with now, but I know it's one of the most common ones. Like anybody else is traveling. Nobody is meeting you with an ARCOP. Nobody is going to ask you questions. Everything is going to be done with a caseworker. The caseworker will liaise with you from the beginning of the time you say you're interested until the end. You get the same 23 kilo that everybody gets, two luggages, everything. You know, you say bye-bye to your friends, you have a party, whatever. There is that service there that we would obviously also emphasize on and more elaborate on more when we have another session. But if there is that person now, please do get in touch with us.
Yeah, and also if somebody's on this platform, and as Jack said, we do have people, foreign offenders in prisons. Also, we do have immigration officers embedded within prisons in the UK. So if anybody has found themselves in prison and is subject to a deportation order or a removal, admin removal, they should approach, and if they are qualifying for the early remove scheme within the prison, they should contact the immigration officer and apply for the facilitated return scheme. Again, we will facilitate your return back to your home country in dignity, and you will be given some money to help you start something when you get back to your home country. There is support out there. If you don't reach out, you don't get it.
Wow, thank you very much for that. Not only do you get a direct flight back home, so no stopping over in any strange location, straight home, but you're also lucky to have a startup capital as well to go back home and start something with. Thank you very much for sharing that. There is somebody, in fact, and I will be contacting you about that person. Like I said as well, the Home Office in the near future will have a one-to-one session. We did that last year in Cambridge where specific cases were dealt with. We obviously can't do that online today. We're hoping sometime in the new year we have a physical version where colleagues from the Home Office will visit us, and then we can deal with specific cases. But before I hand over to Andrew, just to say thank you again to Laura, Janet, Jakpal, Suhal, and Rebecca for taking time out on your Saturday to be with us, to my fellow colleagues and students, taking that advice from Jakpal. Number one, don't be in that position in the first place. And secondly, if you're already in that position, if we do it well, it will be well with us. So on that note, I will now hand over to Andrew for the closing remarks, and that brings us to the end. Thank you everyone for joining. Bye for now.
Thank you so much, David. And I want to appreciate Laura, Janet, Jack, and Suad, and most especially Rebecca, because most of us here are students, and she spoke to exactly what our problems are. And I believe we've been able to take one or two things from this. Actually, we planned the physical event the other time, but time did not permit us, and we hope we can arrange for that next time. So I want to appreciate everyone for being on the call. All the, like someone will say, Professor Mulumba, there can't be any talk without the audience. We will just be talking to ourselves, and we want to appreciate every person in the audience who have been here to listen to us. And we want to appreciate all our guests for taking time out to be here. And we do hope next time when we call upon you, of course, you'll be more than willing to be with us. So thank you for the wonderful 2 hours. It's very informative, very helpful, and very family bond, so to say. So I want to say goodbye to everyone at this point.
Goodbye.
Thank you for having us. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.